If your dog suddenly barks wildly at the air or stares blankly at a spot, please don't be surprised. It's very likely that he sees something you can't. This newly released movie will take you on an exploration of a different world from the dog's perspective. The dog Yindi has lived with its owner since it was young, and they spent several unforgettable happy years together. Until this day, Todd suddenly fell ill and sat on the bed with a nosebleed that wouldn't stop, and Yindi saw a dark figure standing in the corner. While still in shock, Todd's sister suddenly rushed into the room.
Hi, I need help. I need an ambulance. My brother is in.
After leaving the hospital, Todd made an important decision, which was to cancel the lease on his apartment and move with his dog to the ancestral home in the countryside. Yindi felt a bit uneasy. Since the day Todd fell ill, he could always see faint shadows lingering around. Braving the pouring rain, the man and the dog finally arrived at the dilapidated old house. Although he hadn't returned for over 10 years, Todd still remembered where the key was kept. As the dust-covered wooden door was pushed open, a familiar scent greeted him. Despite the hall being filled with clutter and dust, Todd felt a strong sense of familiarity, as this place held all the memories of his childhood. However, Yindi inexplicably felt a chill and noticed a putrid smell in the air. He followed the scent to the basement entrance, where Todd was repairing the circuit below. Yindi wanted to warn his owner that this place wasn't clean, but it came out as a few barks. After restoring power, Todd played the videotapes from the cabinet. It turned out his grandfather, like him, was also a dog lover. Until one day, after suddenly falling ill, his dog mysteriously disappeared. From that day on, the house was left vacant. Yindi was intently watching the video when a flash of lightning struck, casting a shadow at the doorway. Determined to uncover the truth, he chased after it without hesitation. Unfortunately, after searching up and down, Yindi found nothing unusual. Until he walked into the attic storage room, he saw that shadow curled up in the corner, considering whether to rush forward, when his master Todd came up with an oil lamp, and the shadow in the corner disappeared. He took Yindi outside, preparing to continue repairing the old house's electrical circuit. Suddenly, his sister called. She felt that Yindi had been acting a bit strange lately, and advised Todd to pay more attention to his dog. She had specifically looked up information online, noting that many people now use dogs to detect various things because their senses are very keen and can find things humans cannot detect. However, Todd didn't pay much attention to it. After hanging up the phone, he continued repairing the circuit. The light above flickered on and off, and Yindi seemed to see something again, whimpering continuously. Todd shouted, "Silly dog," and took him back to the room to sleep. In his dreams, Yindi saw a dog squatting in the basement, staring at him. Early the next morning, Todd woke up and prepared to go to town to buy supplies, leaving Yindi to watch the house. As it got dark, Todd still hadn't returned. At this moment, a few barks came from outside. Yindi curiously looked in the direction of the sound, and it turned out to be coming from the vent. Immediately, the dog he saw in his dream yesterday suddenly appeared. He curiously followed behind it until he reached the second-floor bedroom, where the dog mysteriously disappeared again, leaving only a red collar on the floor. Yindi sniffed it and felt that the scent was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, his pupils inexplicably dilated as a pitch-black hand reached out. Immediately after, a figure slowly approached Yindi at the stairway, scaring him so much that his legs went weak, and he quickly hid under the bed. The shadow got closer and closer. Fortunately, it was just a false alarm. The visitor turned out to be the master, Todd. Yindi instinctively moved forward, but was ruthlessly pushed away by Todd. He said he was very tired and just wanted to have a good sleep. The severe coughing and the bandage on his arm made Yindi feel inexplicably uneasy. No wonder Todd came back so late. He must have gone to the hospital after shopping. He quietly stayed by his master's side until a chill hit. Yindi suddenly woke up from his sleep, noticing a row of black footprints on the floor that appeared at some point. Curious, he walked over to check. This row of footprints extended downstairs. Just as he reached the living room, a figure passed in front of him. It was Master Todd. However, his state was somewhat strange, as he kept banging his head against the door. Yindi quickly rushed forward and bit his pant leg. Todd suddenly shuddered all over, and only then awoke from his unconscious state. However, he didn't remember any of his previous strange actions. Could it be that Todd was sleepwalking just now? The next morning, Todd woke up and kept rubbing his forehead. At this moment, his sister's call came as expected, and she was very concerned about her brother's condition. It turned out that Todd had inherited a family illness, which had caused the deaths of his grandfather and father. While the siblings were on the phone, Yindi heard noises from upstairs again and followed the sound to the previous attic. Looking at the empty rocking chair, Yindi seemed to perceive the image of an old man coughing up blood. Immediately after, that black hand appeared again, roughly dragging the old man into the darkness. It was unclear how much time had passed when the basement door was pushed open. Todd, with weak steps, was searching for his beloved dog and was about to go down to the basement when Yindi suddenly appeared behind him. His whole body was covered in mud, and his eyes seemed much dimmer. Todd quickly put him into the bathtub, preparing to wash the mud off the dog. Just halfway through washing, he suddenly coughed up a large mouthful of blood, hard, and his eyes became even dimmer, because the symptoms Todd showed were exactly the same as the old man he encountered before. Perhaps it won't be long before Todd is also dragged into the shadows by that black hand. And indeed, as Yindi expected, the master went to the hospital for a full body checkup, and even the doctor said he didn't have long to live. This hereditary disease is extremely rare, with almost no cases of recovery in the country. What made Yindi even more anxious and uneasy was that the master became increasingly strange, as if something was trying to break out of his body. Not only that, but the shadow in the old house became clearer. Although he didn't know its origin, for safety's sake, Yindi stayed by the master's side at all times, fearing that he might be dragged away by the shadow like his grandfather. After finally waiting for Todd to fall asleep, Yindi saw the shadow flash by. He chased it out of the room in confusion, only to see Todd tumble down the stairs and pass out. The next moment, Yindi woke up from the dream, secretly relieved that it wasn't real. A large hand suddenly grabbed him under the bed, and seeing Todd's anxious expression, it seemed like he was hiding from something terrifying. Yindi thought the master was sleepwalking again, but then he saw that wet black hand once more. He instinctively bit at it, only to hear the master let out a piercing scream. Already upset, Todd was completely enraged and also recalled Yindi's recent strange behavior, so he found a collar and tied him up. Poor Yindi couldn't speak to explain. He wanted to argue that it wasn't his behavior that was strange, but rather that strange things kept happening around Todd. Unknowingly, it started to rain heavily, but Yindi did not hide in the doghouse. Instead, he worriedly stared at the second-floor bedroom, because that dog shadow appeared again. Noticing that Todd was continuously coughing up blood, he anxiously wanted to rush inside, but the chain was tightly held by the black hand. Yindi used all his strength and managed to forcibly break free from the chains, but when he ran to the old house, he found the main door locked. Suddenly, barking came from the nearby cellar. Yindi turned his head and saw that the cellar door, which had been locked, was somehow opened. He curiously walked down the stairs and found the dog's remains lying on the ground. It turns out that grandfather's beloved dog did not go missing, but died in the basement. Meanwhile, Todd, lying in the bedroom, suddenly felt short of breath. He struggled to sit up and saw a trail of black footprints on the floor, sensing something approaching. Todd hurriedly closed the bedroom door, but it was flung open by an invisible force. The next moment, the figure of a coin slowly appeared. Todd let out a long sigh of relief, as if finding his backbone. He was about to go back to sleep when he discovered someone lying on the bed. Raising the lamp for a closer look, he saw it looked exactly like himself. Todd had not yet recovered from the shock when his neck was caught by a shadow with a chain. Seeing his master in danger, Hardy hurriedly chased after. The living room door was locked, so he smashed through the window glass and followed the shadow into the basement. At the end of the darkness, there was a cave, and Todd's screams occasionally came from inside. Without hesitation, Yindi crawled in. After an unknown amount of time, he actually dragged Todd's body out of the cave. But just as the man and the dog were about to leave the basement, the shadow appeared again. The dog whimpered in fear, and with a wave of the shadow's ends, Todd, who was lying on the ground, also began to turn dark, quickly becoming like the shadow.
No. gotta stay here.
Then it flew back into the cave again. This time, Yindi did not follow inside, but silently stayed at the entrance, hoping that one day the master would return to visit. At this moment, it finally realized that the shadow it saw was actually the legendary Grim Reaper. Since the day Todd fell ill, the Grim Reaper had been waiting for death to arrive. When Yindi forcibly broke free from the chains, the master Todd was already dead, and what it saw afterward was just his soul. Unfortunately, life and death are predestined by fate. Even if Yindi could meet the Grim Reaper, he was powerless to change anything. He stayed at the cave entrance for several days without eating or drinking. If nothing unexpected happened, Yindi would also die in the basement like his grandfather's dog. Suddenly, the basement door was opened. It turned out that Todd's sister, unable to reach him, drove over to investigate. After taking care of her brother's remains, she took Yindi away from the old house. The story ends here. Most of the shots in this movie are from the dog's perspective, and the dialogue is minimal, making many scenes quite abstract and difficult to understand with just one viewing. It's recommended to watch an explanation. Lastly, Archie wants to ask, have you encountered any strange things while raising a dog? Feel free to leave a comment for discussion, and see you next time.